Hello, and welcome to another episode of A Product of Proverbs. I'm Joshua Fowler, the host of this weekly podcast in which I sit down with my co-host and dad, Reverend Roy Fowler. And we're now in, I forgot which week of lockdown, but we are very well adapted to our current way of life.
Is it 4 weeks?
It's got to be more than 4 weeks. As I shared on my Instagram story, I actually have been journaling every day since the beginning of when they told us to stay home from work. So March 23rd was my first journal day. So I guess that is about 4 weeks of, say, official kind of guided lockdown. Either way, we are now here with another coronavirus, COVID-19 common sense update. This update is coming off the heels of the state that we live in, unfortunately, reopening some of the essential businesses such as bowling alleys and movie theaters and nail salons and barber shops,
massage parlors.
Some of the places where social distancing is almost inevitable, because you're never kind of within 6 feet of people at these type of places. But regardless, these are now being reopened. But it is up to you to decide if you will be going to these newly reopened businesses. So today's episode will be Stay Home Part 2, as we'll be sharing some of the same advice that we shared in our first Stay Home episode. But we'll be taking a different look and a different approach at kind of what's going on during these times. I actually enjoy these type of episodes where they're kind of dated. We can look back on it and say, I remember when this stage of the coronavirus was happening. I remember when these people were saying this. But unfortunately, we're in the stage we're in, and we just got to deal with this stage. Luckily, we have shared some good advice on how to proceed in times like this. We have looked at different ways, different things that go into dealing with these type of things. So we always want to encourage you to look at some of our older episodes as well, because there's good wisdom, good advice in those that apply to this one. Looking through the list, I see choices. Making choices on stay at home, come in. I see reading, something you can do with this free time you have at home. I see relationships and nurturing those relationships around you, as many of you have been doing kind of inevitably, being home with your family or having to call people because you don't see them as often. But looking at the intention behind nurturing relationships, initiative versus patience, which is very, very important now for business owners, because I know you do have overhead. There's a reason for you to want to be open, because being closed isn't beneficial. So you may want to take that initiative for your business, for your lifestyle, for your employees, but also you kind of need that patience. You have to analyze, is it worth it? During that episode, we look at both initiative and patience, and that might help you in making a decision on whether to reopen or not reopen, or in what capacity you will reopen. So then after that, we have authority. Authority is important because we do have these leaders that are making these decisions for us that will impact us in our lives. We have to realize that it's the position and not the person. And then realize the power that we have to influence authority in the community episode. So taking a look at what we can do to ensure that the next time something like this happens, we'll have leaders that share our common interest. We'll have leaders that understand what it feels like from our perspective and going through things like these. So just looking through some of those older episodes, there's a lot of gold in there. So feel free to check those out on any podcast platform. That's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Alexa, Google Podcast. But it's a product of Proverbs. This is probably the longest intro we've ever done because we touched on a couple different things. Yeah. But what's up, Dad?
Not much, just trying to get some kind of understanding out of what's going on. And it's just a strange time to be in, actually. And I do feel the businesses, and I do understand, and I see the pressure that they're under, and I really wish the government could give more or would give more assistance, because I think they've been put in a bad way by reopening at this time, because honestly, we're not ready for that, but they've kind of been forced to have to make that decision and put themselves and their people, their employees and their customers, in harm's way, because I think we're still a long way from where we need to be with this coronavirus.
And I know you just got some guidance for religious gatherings from the government, and then processing that and making those decisions that will ultimately influence your flock.
And I don't understand, I guess, from the mega church perspective, but I do from the smaller church. We're in a better position to not have to come back because it's not like a business. It's not income generating. So, but I don't know how it is on the other side of that.
What I like to look at is Psalms 23. That was in your sermon that we have been live streaming on Facebook since the lockdown. So we've taken church virtual with Damascus Baptist Church. So if you're listening to this and you would like to join in a Sunday worship service at Damascus Baptist Church on Facebook, every Sunday at 11 a.m., we stream a full worship service with song, prayer, sermon, the whole nine. And it's there for you to sign on and view from the comfort and safety of your own home during these times, because as you know, we're team stay home over here.
No, that's one thing personally. I'm not going to put finances ahead of family. I'm not going to put income ahead of the safety of the people. Offering, I'm not really, concerned about that. I'm more concerned about my people staying safe. And that's just the way it is. And I hope that all the pastors and leaders would feel that same way. So we're in a different position than the businesses are, because we're not income generating. Maybe there's some ministries we're not able to do that we probably could have done, but we can still maintain with the stay at home. And I really don't know how long we'll be at home, even when the government say 100% go. If I don't feel, and the leadership as we meet and figure things out, if we don't feel comfortable or safe, that it's safe to do so, we're not going to. I know we're excited and happy to, we like church, we like to assemble together, but I'm not going to put the people in harm's way.
And that's a good shepherd, because Psalms 23, it's good that we can cover this here. That'll be the third time this week you preached about it in your sermon. We had a Bible study, and my company actually had an hour Zoom meeting of prayer and reflection in which they shared Psalms 23 in that meeting, in that exercise. And that was very cool, seeing that your company kind of supports your spirituality.
Yeah.
Your company supports your growth as a person in all aspects, not just what you can do for them money-wise. They want to see you thrive and be successful and happy, and overall that's very cool to see from your company, because so many companies aren't that. They don't do that. Which actually goes into today's proverb, which is Proverbs 11:3. It says, "The integrity of the upright guides them, but the crookedness of the treacherous destroys them." So looking at this coronavirus reopening, or kind of this part two of stay home, that's saying that as a business owner, as an employee, if you're an employer, and just as someone that's living right now during this COVID time, you have to wonder what your intention is behind the decisions you're making. If you're moving with integrity, if you're moving with good intentions, if you do have good energy behind what you're doing, you'll be guided to either open or stay home, whichever one makes the most sense and is the safest for you. And safest doesn't just mean health and coronavirus. Safest could mean your mental health. Safety could mean your way of life. You have to preserve your way of life. It's not just about, I might catch coronavirus, I might infect this other person. You gotta look at the whole thing and say, well, hey, maybe I'll reopen, but I'm not opening the dining floor. We'll do to go.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times, as you mentioned, it affects us long term, maybe emotionally, not just financially, but emotionally as well. And in all reality, some people take their lives because of situations. So it's a whole lot of areas that's impacted by decisions that are made. And I just would encourage everybody to really, you got to search your own heart and just make sure that you're doing things, whatever you're doing, for the right reason. I like our mayor of Atlanta who said, in order to make some money, you got to be alive.
Yeah.
You can't come back from the dead. But if you're alive, you can still, as long as you got life, you got a chance and you've got an opportunity. We've been put in a bad way, honestly, by our government. Number one, you don't get the same message. There's no consistent message across the board. It's like that's a problem because we're looking for our leaders for direction. But when we get mixed messages, left today, right tomorrow, up today, down tomorrow, and then so you got that disconnect. There's no continuity or unity in the leadership. So that makes it real hard for everybody else. And I'm just, I've been watching and listening to all of these promises that's been made, the aid that was supposed to be given, and how that was compromised, how people took advantage of that. These large companies ended up taking the money where the small companies was not able to get the money they should have gotten. But we were told to shut down and we were going to be helped, but the help never arrived. So people were put in a bad situation to start with. And even now we're still looking for direction, but we get mixed answers. And then in our own mind, we're wondering, why are they doing what they're doing? We've gotten to the place where we don't trust their decisions because we don't feel that it's in the best interest of the people, that there's some ulterior motive.
And that ulterior motive is really addressed in the second half of our proverb, which says, but the crookedness of the treacherous destroys them. There's no unity because I don't think these people are walking in integrity. There's no true guidance. They can't share a good message because there isn't integrity guiding their thoughts and actions. Their thoughts and actions are being guided by that crookedness, by that greed, by that ulterior motive that inevitably is going to destroy them, because it's not going to destroy us, because as you can see, we don't have to listen. Business owners are saying, oh, you reopened Georgia? I didn't reopen my store.
Yeah.
And that's a decision you have to make. So what that does is that business owner will still survive. But that mayor, that governor, this their last term. Because we going to remember this.
Yeah.
That leader, that CEO, I don't think they got too much longer if they didn't make the right moves during this time. So that person that isn't walking with integrity, that person that isn't kind of moving with wisdom, that person that is looking at greed and selfishness to drive their decisions, they might survive the coronavirus, but inevitably their character, their reputation, their positions, their careers, that's kind of going to be destroyed. That might be gone when you think about it.
It's real funny when you look at it. It's politics. People go into politics supposedly to serve people. But when you look at it, the politicians put policy and profit over the people. It's kind of messed up. Why would you go into the politics if you're going in for the people? But so even in our proverb, perhaps in integrity, they're not even going in for the right reason. They're going in the right place, but for the wrong reason. And they're using it to profit and to advance themselves rather than really serve the people. Because I think we've got to consider the safety of the people and the health of the people, because without people, there is no life.
I don't know. I think that the best thing we can do is just be patient. I was just thinking that every day is something new. I remember when this first started, I was watching the news and I was listening to all the YouTube videos and reading articles. And then I realized that you told me something on Monday, and then on Tuesday, you told me that what you told me on Monday wasn't true. And then on Wednesday, you told me what you told me on Tuesday wasn't true, that this is true now. I'm like, I'm not listening to y'all no more. Y'all just making stuff up as y'all go. It's kind of like a distrust in the information that we're being given.
And just know that it's not accurate.
It's hard to listen to something you know isn't true.
You just got to make sure that you don't, as I said in the message about, don't magnify it. And that's what happens when you get all this information coming in. It messes with your mind. It messes with your mind. And it doesn't matter if it's true or not.
That's the problem.
It affects you the same.
You're being affected by false information as if this was actual facts.
Yeah.
Because it's being presented to you as a fact.
And see, your body reacts the same to it, whether it's true or false. And affects you the same way. It causes you stress, anxiety, fear, all of that. And some of this stuff will never materialize. So you got to be careful with this information, this misinformation.
The best thing that you can do, or at least what I feel like I'm going to do, is wait until it's pretty much died down entirely. I'm going to wait until they've pretty much said that the coronavirus is under control, that a lot of people have died, but people aren't really dying from it like that anymore. They've started testing their vaccines on whoever is going to take that. I personally won't be taking no coronavirus vaccine. They're going to do all these things, and after that's kind of died down, I feel like then it's safe to go about normal, not worried about what's going on in life. But until then, you're going to have to kind of be alert.
Yeah, you got to stay alert. Be smart. Watch the government.
That's smart. I didn't think about that, because if they're not meeting in Congress or the Senate, then why would I be meeting anywhere else?
Yeah, watch that. Watch the government, because they're making the decisions. So when they open, start moving forward. I don't care how you feel about Democrat, Republican, Independent. I don't really care about how you feel about that. But the people in leadership, they need some prayers and support, because I would not want to be in the place of making the decisions they have to make today. This is unprecedented. This is a war that you would never want to have to fight, because it affects everybody. And you can see it. I've never seen nothing in my generation like this. And I've been around a good while, but I've not seen anything like this. I'm hoping that they just make the right decisions for this situation, because I don't really want to give up my rights or my freedoms. I don't want them to tell me, make all the decisions for me. I don't want the Constitution to be done away with. I think that's important, and I think that's what we've got to watch out for.
This stuff is very scary. In one of my journal entries, as I said, I've been keeping a daily journal on just everything that's happening, what I do throughout the day, is how I feel throughout the day. It's just once a day I'll write a short little journal entry. One of them said that this is like a scary movie. Feels like a scary movie, a World War Z, a Day After Tomorrow, or Independence Day.
Yep.
It feels like one of those type of things happening, but luckily I've seen them all and seen how they end, and I'm not really that scared because it feels like a scary movie. But if this was completely foreign to me, if I hadn't understood or watched documentaries on pandemics, on global viruses, on what different diseases have done to humanity over time, if I didn't know kind of how society reacts to big things like this, how they ain't even got emergency helicopters flying people off, where people jumping on it, pulling it to the water.
Mm-hmm.
It ain't even like that. So I'm not as scared. That doesn't mean it's not as serious, though.
Right.
It doesn't mean it's not as serious. But no, this is a product of Proverbs, and the official word from this podcast is stay home. Please, just stay at home, take care of your business, do what you have to do, but don't do what you want to do. Just because it's open doesn't mean you have to go. And
Right. Think about somebody else, because you may be okay and you might not even ever show a sign or anything, but then you might infect a lot of people that you love. And just think about other people. I think that's important for us to put others before ourselves. And Joshua, I think I like what you said about do what you have to do, but really think about those things that you just want to do that you don't have to do. Because if you go ahead and wait, then you might get to do those things. But if you go out now, then you might not get a chance to. So it's just use wisdom, and common sense goes a long way in this thing. Don't deny it. Don't deny it, because it is real. Don't ignore it. But you got to face it, like I said in the message. You just got to face it and deal with it.
and there you have it. This is another week of a product of Proverbs, and we thank you for tuning in. You can catch us next week, same time, same place, wherever you listen to podcast at. And as always, be sure to check us out on Instagram and on Facebook. Recently, we've been recording these episodes on Instagram Live, so that's been a cool little experience. Just interacting with some of the listeners as we were recording and answering some questions. If you join the Instagram Live, you'll get to hear some content that doesn't make the final cut of the podcast. So with that, we thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch you next week.